Hello, hello! Welcome back to Loki's Librarian. If you are new here, welcome. I am your librarian, Katrina, and on Sundays I do a thing called Books and Booze, where I review a book and mix up a cocktail. This month I was reading books on what makes a good story and have been disappointed so far. Last week's book was more of a biography on Joseph Campbell, which, while it was not what I was looking for, was at least entertaining. This week's book, The Heroine's Journey by Gail Carriger, was... I am angry with this book. I am angry that this book has made its way into my library. We're going to come back to that in spades. The accompanying cocktail is called... I think it is called The Heroine's Journey. How did I not get the name of I got the recipe in here. I didn't get the name of the recipe in here. Oh, excuse me. It's called Liquid Heroine. It is, yeah. But it's spelled heroine. Liquid Heroine. Not heroin. This week's cocktail is called Liquid Heroine. It is 1.5 ounces of Peppermint Liqueur and 1.5 ounces of Jagermeister. So let's do this. This will be short and sweet. Well, the cocktail is short and sweet. The review, not so much. When I got this book, I was looking to see if there was a counter to the hero's journey, as depicted in this diagram that I threw up last week, right? Turns out there is, if you are a fourth-wave feminist who views the world strictly through gendered lenses. I'm irritated. I am very irritated with this book. So, she starts by breaking down a side-by-side of hero versus heroine. Purpose. A hero's purpose is in defeating his enemy or retrieving a boon. A heroine is looking to reunite with someone taken from her. She wants to network and connect with others, find a family. Approach. A hero is always on the offense and will kill or trick his way into winning. He's always moving. A heroine achieves her goals through community and communication. She builds civilizations and delegates as needed. She fears isolation. I feel like this is really stereotypical. She's stereotyping women versus men, and not accurately, I think. As any female who is a introvert will tell you, we don't like people. Strength. A hero must go it alone to win one-on-one. A heroine requests help and is stronger because of her friends. You see how pathetic this is. Power. Heroes are the most powerful when they are alone. Heroines when they are with others. Ending. The hero will end alone. Loneliness, death, and alcohol are his reward for all his work. A heroine will end with happiness and family. Let me shake this up. I'm going to need alcohol to get through the rest of this. Now this is supposed to be poured into 2 shot glasses. Brought a coupe glass up so I can slowly sip this. Well, that looks absolutely horrifying, but it fits in the coupe glass, so let's finish on. See the trend? She has characterized anything masculine as bad and all things feminine as good. But where she really lost me, and I know I was in for a rough read, is when she says, quote, in other words, women, female-identified, and non-binary characters can be heroes. Men, male-identified, and non-binary characters can be heroines. I mean, fuck me. She's a gender-critical social justice warrior, and mentions her degree in anthropology and former career as an archaeologist to support her belief that non-binary is a thing. That wasn't even in the body of the book. It was in the introduction. Page XV15, for those of you who don't read Roman numerals. Fuck, I knew this was going to be a hard read. It's actually not bad. It is absurdly sweet, but it's not bad. Now, for my own sanity at this point, I did a double check with Dr. Deborah So book. I read her a few years ago. The End of Gender, you know, the book written by somebody with a PhD in sex neuroscience. Yeah, the one with the actual doctorate on this very topic. And yes, I actually did recall correctly. Biological sex is not a spectrum. Gender is not a social construct. There are only 2 genders. Non-binary is not a thing. Fuck. Back to this book. She says, quote, the heroine's journey is not simply the hero's journey undertaken by a woman. It is narratively different, not biologically different. She then says, quote, Joseph Campbell, the original propagator of analyzing the hero's journey, is reputed to have said, women don't need to make the journey, the woman is there. All she has to do is realize she's the place people are trying to get to. Carriger did not have a high opinion of this, also said that she could not find any evidence that Campbell actually said this. And okay, fair enough, I've only read the one book by Campbell, and I certainly don't know everything he ever said ever, but the quote struck a bell. It sounded very familiar. like I was sure he had said something very similar in last week's book. So when I was removing my little tabbies, I kept a couple in place. I made sure to keep it tabbed out so I could find it. Pages 109 to 110 of my copy of The Hero's Journey. Quote, I was teaching these courses on mythology, and at the end of my last year there, this woman comes in and sits down and says, well, Mr. Campbell, you've been talking about the hero, but what about the women? And I said, the woman's the mother of the hero. She's the goal the hero is trying to achieve. She's the protectress of the hero. She is this, she is that. What more do you want? You know, I mean, truly, if you compare a typical life cycle of a hero's journey, it could be argued that women are heroes every damn day. And I'm not being facetious here. I'm not trying to talk up motherhood or not motherhood, because it also applies to men to a point. And a call to adventure would be about the time you start dating, right? Get out of the house, go meet people. Meeting a mentor, meeting the one. Crossing a threshold, getting married. I mean, hell, they literally used to carry the bride across the threshold, okay? Trials and failures, there's a lot of that in early marriage, finding out what works for you as a couple and what doesn't. Growth and new skills, growing as a couple, finding your feet. And then the paths diverge. Because death and rebirth would mean literal childbirth, right? Men cannot follow women down that path, despite what the gender-critical social justice warriors want you to think. Men cannot give birth. Only a woman can do that. And sometimes the death and rebirth is realizing that you can't have children, or that the thought of having children fills you with existential dread and you were never meant to be a mother, right? There are women out there like that. I know that, again, that's not a popular topic. All of these things are pathways that are going to lead to different areas of your own journey as a woman. She could have just said this, right? Because if you give birth and have children, then that knowledge is going to change you. If you can't have children, that knowledge is going to change you. If you decide not to have children, that's a battle you're going to have the rest of your life, because everybody who ever meets you is going to want to know why. Why didn't you want children? Why didn't you have children? And all of these things are different branches of a similar journey. But let's continue on with what the vast majority of women do, right? The vast majority of women do have children, and good for them. Some women literally can't have children, and that knowledge will crush your soul, and you actually have almost a worse row than women who decide not to have children, because you're going to have sympathy from every person who ever meets you, ever. So you'll have that little knife stuck in your heart and twisted again and again and again. Atonement might mean realizing that your parents might have known a thing or two, maybe apologizing them for having been a brat when you were a kid. Having gone through this journey themselves, you see. A gift is in raising well-adjusted children who then give you grandchildren. And then life returns to semi-normal because your kids have left the nest and you're back on your own, but changed, different. Kids are out of the house, so it's just you and your husband again, and the life cycle / heroine's journey is complete. So women are what men are trying to achieve. They don't have that descent into actual literal death when they're trying to give birth. Only women can do that. And so it makes sense to me that that is what Campbell meant. And, I mean, I could be dead wrong, right? He might get that comparison and be like, no, that's not what I meant at all, but nice try, Blondie. And, okay, fine. But she's already living the hero's journey. Not that none of that changes men. Men certainly get changed when children enter the scene. But the key element that sends them questing out of the house is that they cannot have babies. They have to find a different path to become a hero. I don't know, maybe Campbell would think I was stretching as much as Carriger stretches in describing the heroine's journey. I mean, so what are the beats, as she calls them, on the heroine's journey? Descent, loss or separation, including familial networks being broken. Help is denied, so she involuntarily abdicates power, resulting in isolation and danger to the heroine as her family offers aid but no solutions. Then you have the search. The heroine has lost family and so disguises herself as she wanders about. She makes a new family and rebuilds her community. She visits the underworld, metaphorically or literally, and receives help from new family and friends. The ascent or return, the heroine negotiates a compromise in which everyone wins. She has a new network or reestablishes ties with her old network. Revenge and glory are irrelevant. She then, Carriger, briefly describes 3 myths that she says are the foundations of the heroine's journey: Demeter, Isis, and Inanna. Oh boy. Demeter, mother of Persephone, who was infamously taken to the underworld to be the bride of Hades. When Demeter realizes her daughter is missing, she asks the gods for help and they turn her out. So she goes to Earth, makes new friends, eventually has them build temples in her honor, finds out Hades has her daughter and compromises with Hades to keep Persephone for 3 months of the year in recompense of the pomegranate seeds that Persephone ate while in the underworld. No one dies. Everyone is happy in the end. In her telling, Carriger does include things like Demeter visited a famine on the planet while looking for her family and passes off temple building as building civilization and not a quest for glory. Even though, I mean, like, why do we build temples except to glorify one god or another? And Demeter insisted we build them. But that's civilization. That's not glory for Demeter's sake. No one dies, except for the poor little humans who starved to death because of the famine. Y'all remember what I read? Red Famine a few years ago? Famine's no joke. It's not like you're hungry for a week, all right? Millions of people starved to death, but that doesn't count. All right, none of the important people died in Demeter's quest or her revenge in, looking for her daughter. And they're only human, right? Everyone wins in the end, except for Persephone, who is sentenced to spend a part of her life with her kidnapper and rapist. Doesn't seem like a win to me. What's particularly ironic is that Carriger says multiple times that rape as an attack is weak sauce and don't do it. And even at the end of the book acknowledges that Persephone was raped. But Demeter won in the end, so that makes her a heroine. Fucking nuts. I mean, please understand, I am familiar with Lore Olympus, which is a wonderful retelling of the Persephone-Hades story that turns it from one to horror, i.e. kidnapping and rape, into a love story for the ages. And it's a good narrative arc. Right? The artist and storyteller has done an amazing job. But it's a romance, not a heroine's arc. Isis and Inanna are more of the same, twisting the myth to try and sell the narrative that the heroine's journey is a separative narrative arc from the hero's journey. But where she really went off the deep end with this book was insisting that Harry Potter was a heroine's journey. And she, again, cherry-picked scenes from the books and movies to try and spin her theory, disregarding the overarching heroic tale and pretending that in the end, Harry didn't just stand alone and kill Voldemort. In fact, he fought Voldemort all by himself in the first book, right? The Sorcerer's Stone. Oh, but they didn't really fight. Wrestling doesn't count. I think the Greeks would disagree, but whatever. So he did fight Voldemort all by himself in the end. Chamber of Secrets. All by himself. A little more help in Prisoner of Azkaban, right? I mean, he and Hermione ended up saving Sirius Black. So he and Hermione worked together to save Sirius Black, and they didn't actually technically have to fight Voldemort. Okay. Goblet of Fire, he was all by himself there with the body of Cedric Diggory while fighting Voldemort. That doesn't count. Order of the Phoenix, he lost key family members there, and that kind of sent him on a massive revenge quest, right? Remember how he was basically a full-on teenage boy in The Half-Blood Prince, where he, also fought by himself at the very end. Oh, and then, of course, the final arc. And it was just such a stretch to try and make that a heroine's journey. On the other hand, I'm pretty sure that since J.K. Rowling walked off the deep end of the turf cliff, she's probably no longer insisting that Harry Potter was a heroine's journey. It's just not popular anymore. She describes the 2017 Wonder Woman, starring Gal Gadot, as a classic hero's journey, explains why she labels it thus. She also says the original Star Wars trilogy is a classic hero journey, even though it has a happy ending, which is, quote, unusual for a hero's journey. Except for the original Odyssey, where Odysseus comes back home after his 20-year voyage to reunite with Penelope. That doesn't count, apparently. After reading this book, I'm pretty sure she only said Star Wars was a hero's nod, gave it a hero's nod because George Lucas himself and Joseph Campbell both said, oh yes, Star Wars is a classic hero's journey. She couldn't really contradict the master without looking foolish, so she just bowed to the inevitable and said it was a hero's journey. She spends a chunk of the book talking about how big in the industry romance novels are, which is true. I mean, it's like 40% of book sales come from romances. Women are big readers, and overwhelmingly they read in the romance genre. And I spent a significant portion of my tween and teen years reading romance novels, so those beats I am very familiar with. But reading her try to shoehorn the typical romantic beats into a grander thing by calling it a heroine's journey.
Ow, that hurt my brains.
I mean, just ouch. She says near the very end that no one else had written such a book, which directly contradicts what she said earlier in the book when she references Maureen Murdoch's book, The Heroine's Journey, Women's Quest for Wholeness, which according to Carriger is, quote, a little dry and academic, by which she means, if I had to guess, since I haven't read this one, it only acknowledges two genders and not some overarching grand theme. But here's the thing. If you want to know how to write a romance novel, there's a free-to-read blog post by Robin Levitt posted on DIYMFA.com outlining the story structure of a romance. And it does reference the hero's journey and how to make this arc slightly. And this is a free-to-read blog post. It was written 2 years before Carriger's, piece of garbage. So, I mean, basically, from Carriger's perspective, if it's funny and has a happy ending, it's a heroine's journey. If it's serious and a sad ending, it's a hero's journey. Because men only bring sadness, I guess, and only women can be funny.
Hey, girls are funny, Wendy, okay? Get over it.
Now, I don't for one second doubt Carriger's chops as a romance novelist. She has well over 20 books published in multiple languages, and while I have actually never read any of her books before this one, I recognized her name, all right? I had seen it around, which is why I bought this one. I thought, maybe she knows a thing or two. So she isn't just some rando who couldn't sell a book trying to pass on advice on how to write a book. It's just that her formula, there are so many better options available for free. That's all I'm going to say. Also, based on how she stereotypes in this book, I am probably guilty of internalized misogyny, since I no longer read romance novels. Mostly because as I moved into adulthood, I realized that they had given me an unhealthy idea of what true love looked like. So, I dare say that most Am I the Asshole Reddit posts are people who have read one or more romance novel and are creating this level of drama in their own lives based on romance novels. While I was reading this book, I posted my frustration with the bullshit contained herein on one of those free forums I mentioned, the Writer's Dojo on Facebook. And after much kvetching of bad writing and bad writing advice, I got this incredibly useful comment from Matthew Bowman of novelninja.net. Quote, most people don't understand the hero's journey, including Campbell. I've got a whole presentation on it. I could write a book on it, but it would be a very thin book. Wordy as I am, how to actually use it as a tool to understand heroic character arcs, because it's not gender specific, is really a simple process. And Matthew's very helpful. I reached out to him. I asked if I could quote him. I said, I'm totally going to quote you. I just need to know if you want me to black out your name or if I can quote you in full. And he said, yes, go ahead, quote me. And he sent me a few slides of examples, things that he had done in presentations before, and said I could use those too. So this is not the full presentation, but, here's a couple of quotes. I love, very specifically in this slide, I'm going to shrink this down for you guys so you can see it, how he references Frank Herbert, who wrote Dune, as objecting to the hero's journey in the monomyth, and Frank Herbert shaped his famous book around the objection to the monomyth. And the reason I love this is because Carriger specifically cites Dune as a classic hero's journey in her references section. So take that for what you will. Book was,
disappointing.
Was so disappointing. And when I was hoping for some great insight, and instead I got 270 pages of how to write a romance novel and why that's heroic, and that men suck and women are funny. Romance novels are fine. There's definitely money in there, unquestionably. But I'm pretty sure that Carriger knows she was spinning bullshit and calling it art, because like a bad poker player, she has a tell. Every time, and I mean every single time, she knows she's about to throw bullshit at you, she precedes it with a disclaimer that not every story is going to follow the same guidance. Heroes can be heroines and vice versa. And then she spouts some utter nonsense to try and back up her claim like she is some great literary artist. So for writing advice, I'm going to refer you back to the Writer's Dojo, where they spin hard truths, but no bullshit. And that's it for this week. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys next Sunday. Wait. I'll see you guys next Sunday as soon as I down the rest of this. So, a little bit for the husband. Now I'll see you next Sunday.